Welcome. Let's hop right into today's show. You are listening to Legacy Moments, where we have authentic conversations about life, business, and so much more to transform your mind, body, and soul. I am Dr. Patrice Berry, and I am joined by my co host and mom, Johnnie Lloyd. Together, we combine my years of psychological training with her years of business and leadership experience to add value to your day. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we are going to hop right into today's topic. We are talking about Black love and Black identity. So, this is February, it is Black History Month, and I thought it was important for us to talk about this topic last week. If you didn't hear last week, I will link it down in the description later after the stream is over. But we talked about identity, knowing who you are and what you bring. And individuals with marginalized identities, sometimes society, other people can say what they think people are. And I thought this was a really important topic. Growing up, I struggled with my identity. I grew up in predominantly European spaces, including we lived in Europe briefly. And being able to know who I was, it was actually watching the movie Roots that helped me connect with myself. And I saw, wow, like different, I saw things a little bit different in a positive way. And I think it's important that we know our history and that history is taught accurately.
And that is so critical. When I went to Africa, I found out that there were some things I was taught or I thought were true, that when I went over there and got the original history from it and how everything happened over there, it was totally different. So the alternative, there has been a lot of alternative facts given to us. And when I say that, that's not to blame, shame, or anybody or anything else. The key is to find out who you are as a person, to find out where your DNA came from, to know that there's all of this richness in your culture, and where you came from was not just we. Most people want. Let me back up. Most people want to start and say, well, African Americans started like somehow they started as slaves. That was not the beginning. And so when you look at who you are as a Black person, looking back to your history, then you see the richness and the fact that it was kings and queens, and the fact of how we do what we do and some of the things that we move our lives in, some of our character traits.
I recently learned, and I don't remember the individual's name. I will have to look it up again later, but I didn't realize that there was a phenomenal carpenter back that developed the bar stool, like the bar counter, the counters, and really that it was this individual that also helped make. I think it was Henry. It was Henry something. I could be wrong, but that he developed bed frames and just there are phenomenal things that that Black people have contributed to this country, and our history is everyone's history. I did not learn a lot about my own history growing up in those predominantly European schools, and I grew up kind of hating history. History was my least favorite subject. But then I went off to college and was able to learn about Black history, African American history, and even took a class on the history of hip hop. And I really got to love and enjoy those things. So yeah.
So I'm gonna go back to exactly what she said. This was like when she found out who I'm gonna put quotes around who she was,
Yeah.
and the history of who she was. It was like this new person sprung forth, because suddenly she had all this information. Now, it was never anybody's intent. I mean, because we lived in Japan for 6 years, we lived in Europe for 6 years. Over in those countries, especially Japan and Europe, typically we were not treated like I mean, black was not a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? It was a different culture. And it was just, I was a person. Or do you have integrity? Do you have character? So going back to Patrice, when she went to tech and she found out all this stuff, she came back and I was waiting for her to do, I was waiting for her to be an advocate for something, or to be an activist, not even an advocate, an activist. She came out live.
So I am. So I came out a little, when I say radical, I mean that like I called my mom. I was like, hey, I'm going to be a part of a protest. I might get arrested. So if I get arrested for protesting, like, please
get me.
Please accept my collect call. Like, please do that. Because once you have this information, because there can be a lot of trauma that's connected to things that have happened, and even things that continue to happen. And it can make you feel helpless to not do anything. And so I wanted to be able to do my part to add and support and encourage different movements and things that were happening on campus.
And so right now, it's funny because I'm saying she was an activist. Here I am now at 60 plus, and I'm an activist for economic empowerment, right? It's actually called economic justice, right? Mm-hmm. So you say, Johnnie, what caused that? Part of what caused that is economic justice, or anything that you go out and you become an activist for. Number one, do research. Do research on who you are and why you're doing what you're doing. Don't just get on a bandwagon for anything, right? So when you find out who you are, it opens the window of opportunity, because not just who you are as a person, but where did you come from? Where did you come from? So one of the things when I went to Africa, I found out the reason that, and I love color. So the colors are typically something that was rich and powerful. We created colors. We built things for color. We dyed things. We did all those things, right? And color is a sense of pride. And even for funerals, they don't do black. They do red. They do red and black, a lot of red. And so it was, and I'm not switching, but it's informative. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, with the activist piece, is that when you find out part of why you're here, your life should be activated in the direction to make a difference and provide support and be a problem solver in that space.
I love that. And we are talking about Black love, about loving and appreciating who you are, where you came from. And recently, because you mentioned the slavery history, and I like that. I heard recently on TikTok, I think someone said slavery was something that happened to us. It wasn't who we are. And when my identity gets tied up into what I've been through, that can make it hard to break free of that, versus if I say that's what happened, but that isn't who I am. So yes, my ancestors, yes, this is the history, but that doesn't have to be who I am.
But even in the midst of that history, check this out. Let's say you were on a plantation and there was food, and they ate the best part of the food and gave us the guts and all that stuff that we now call chitlins and all this stuff. Now those things are delicacies. Now I still don't eat no chitlins. I ain't gonna eat them. I'm not gonna eat them. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm saying is this: we took the power of our mind and our innovation and our creativity, took what we were given, and we made it work for that time. So this is something that's inbred in you. So when you look at a situation, the adversity and things like that happen in your life right now that may be happening, pull back on the strength of your ancestors, right? To know that if they can go through all of that, all the things that they've come to this point, that you can handle, you can get through, you can survive. You can not just survive, but you can thrive through whatever you're going through. Tap into that power.
I
that's
love
in
that.
that
I
in
love
us.
that. And don't be afraid to reach out for help.
Yes.
I am very grateful and thankful to be able to not only be able to have accepted help for myself, but also encourage other family members. Like, hey, if things aren't okay, you might need to go and talk to somebody. And that in the past, the only things that we had was maybe the church or maybe our local doctor, or we didn't have access to mental health care, to safe mental health care. And I'm so grateful that the field of psychology still tends to be pretty European, but it is getting more diverse, and we're starting to have more and more safe spaces to be able to connect and work on some of those deeper things.
And one of the deeper things we work on is our impression of ourselves.
Mhm.
When we look in the mirror and we see ourselves, look at ourselves of what we like, what we enjoy, what we value. So many times in advertising and everything else that's put out there, they tell you what you're not. You have to define for yourself who and whose you are. Because when you don't define it for yourself, other people will put a label on us. So don't always accept labels that are put on you.
Because I remember growing up, struggling with self-esteem at times because the way my body was made wasn't the ideal. The ideal was like really, really just it was really, really, really tiny. That was the ideal. Now the ideal is pretty curvy. And I mean, people get lip filler to plump up their lips, and people do all of these things.
Not just lips.
But those are fads, and those things change. And accepting and appreciating who I am, that is incredibly important to me. And then I do accentuate who I am. So I do wear makeup when we record these things. I'm not a person that wears makeup every day, but I don't think there's anything wrong with being able to accentuate the parts of you that you like, or that you want to. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I would like us to really dive into for just a moment
Mhm.
is helping us teach our children who they are. You know, the richness of who they were and who they were created to be. And when I say that, I'm saying when they're younger, to instill in them a sense of pride. A sense of history. Don't depend on other people to give them that information. Maybe buy books. There's so many
Yeah.
great books out
Yeah.
there that give us examples of things that we've done.
And I've spoken a lot about our child's name. We named our child after Langston Hughes, a famous poet. Our child is very creative, and we support and encourage that. And then sometimes our child has some struggles, and we support and we get extra help where we need it. But in school, they learned about Lonnie Johnson, the African American that developed the Super Soaker. So of course, like my kiddo, because he wants a little water gun. Like he was super excited about learning about those things. And if your school doesn't automatically incorporate those things into the curriculum, make sure to there are YouTube things. Snoop Dogg has he has a cartoon
Yeah.
that has some amazing affirmations that are put to a nice beat. And so making sure that you're speaking life into your child, because sadly, when people think of Black, a lot of times they think of ominous, they think dark, they think scary, they think of these negative words. Often when people think of Black, they don't think of beautiful. They don't think of I'm thinking of onyx or like valuable. I think Black diamonds are
Yeah.
are extremely valuable.
Absolutely.
And so, but just because somebody else doesn't see that in in me automatically, being able to have that for yourself, and that when you experience negative things. So recently, I was meeting with someone and they were like, "You're a doctor, right?" And a part of me was like, "Oh no, is it because I have on sneakers? I don't know. Was it because I'm like?" It was just like, oh, like, yes, I am, and it ended up being a good fit. Everything else ended up going okay, but being able to know who you, because people will push those buttons. People will not always see you for how they are, but it's not their job to see me for who I am. Like, it's my job to know, and then to have certain boundaries and things. Because if somebody did come in and they were trying to minimize my position, minimize my knowledge, and things like that, that's this isn't gonna let me refer you to somebody else. Like, I don't think this will be a good fit. But yeah.
And giving yourself the opportunity and the options to say no.
Mm?
So one of the things she mentioned is that, when you think of a piece of coal,
Yeah.
COAL, and you put it under pressure, what does it become? It becomes a diamond. So under pressure, we have rose to every single occasion. And so just because someone else's perception or the way they treat you or the way they respond, and I love the way Patrice talked about that, you get a chance to say no, right? However, it's how we say no. Because remember that sometimes people have been put in a situation where they fear us, not because of who we are, but because we're Black. They have a concern because
And that's not an
and
excuse.
it's not an excuse, but it is a reality. So the key is, or their concern is, what, are you a doctor? I mean, look at the question, and she went immediately when her like, is it the sneakers? Is it this? Is it that? But what
My
rose
first thought was, is it because I'm Black?
yeah, I wasn't gonna get it. Yeah. However, self-confidence, and we did something on that. Self-confidence is the key. When you've done the work in your life, when you know who you are, when you know that then that self-confidence helps radiate to the forefront. It doesn't mean that it's perfect, doesn't mean that everything is perfect about what we do or say. However, it's an internal thing that we have to tap into.
And that those situations do hurt. That does, and each person is going to handle that situation differently, and I'm not here to tell anybody how to manage that. I follow a few people on TikTok where they will clap back in a video, like don't question. Everybody handles things a little bit different. For and some, and if I was, depending on the state I'm in, I might have checked in with how a person was doing. And it's okay for me to know that, okay, today there has been too much going on in the news. I'm coping with my own racial trauma right now. Is I can't go there today with this client, and that's okay. But I am glad that I know that I can be authentically me, and I do hope that they do pass legislation that protects, like, Black hair, where an employer can't discriminate based on me, wearing my hair curly. I work for myself, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's not. But there are individuals, there are people, and this can happen very young, where in elementary school or in pre-K, kids can experience racism and discrimination and things like that. And so,
Right.
being able to support and encourage your child, I know that I can't keep my child from ever experiencing those things, but I can prepare him, to be able to, first of all, let me know if something happens that isn't okay, and then, that as a family, as a support system, that we can reset.
So one of the things I'm gonna say to all of us is this: it's first person I need to love is me, right? And then I need to love my sister and my brother. It doesn't mean that I agree with everything they do or say. It just means I need to love them. And not just because they're Black. I just need to love humanity. I need to love people. That's my
And love doesn't mean I have to be around you.
yeah.
So let's love
That's good.
just
That's good.
because I respect you as a person does not mean that I have to let you in my space. And that's how I personally feel, even with family. So if there are people that are saying and doing things that are harmful, they're creating an unsafe environment for me, I do not have to be around you.
I love
And
that.
that's okay.
And that's under the places where we talked about boundaries. Make sure you go back and look at that if that's a situation that you need to dive deeper into,
Mhm.
because boundaries do matter. And
Mhm.
the thing about our boundaries is we establish our boundaries,
Mhm.
and then we are the one that's the gatekeeper. I can say it like that, the gatekeeper of our boundaries. However, loving does not mean I'm tolerable
Yeah.
to everything, right? So me loving me first allows me to know what I am tolerable and intolerable to.
Mhm.
So self-love,
Mhm.
and then that love is radiated through the actions that I then take with other people, because we teach people how to treat us. Keep that in mind.
And generationally, so I appreciate the things that, so like my mom was not able to wear, like she did, straighten her hair and did things in a certain way so that she could grow and really make
Corporate
the
America.
make people more comfortable with her.
Yeah.
I have the privilege that I don't have to do those things. If somebody is uncomfortable with me wearing Black History Month earrings during Black History Month or even outside, I don't know. Like if somebody's not okay with that,
That's serious.
they I have a wait list. Like this okay, that's
Self-empowerment. Can I give you another tip? This is the deal. In your life, don't look for anybody else to rescue you. Don't do it. Don't look for somebody else to rescue you. Look for how you can empower yourself.
and we got a question
Good.
on TikTok, and I want you to go back. So we spent a whole, I think, 20 minutes last week talking about self-love. Hello from Turkey. Welcome, welcome, Fit African Mom. Welcome, welcome.
Hope you're okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Oh yes. I hope you're okay. And because I know there were the major earthquakes, yeah, in Syria and near Turkey. And so but the question is, can I get better with self love if I'm already in a relationship? And the answer is yes, but then be okay. Because sometimes as we change in a relationship, because if the person is used to me not being confident, sometimes dynamics change. And so I definitely think a person can work on self-love. In my Amazon list, I have a self-love book pinned there that I liked. I think it's a self-love workbook. I might have it over there too. But definitely check out some of those resources. Last week we did talk about self-love, and that's available over on YouTube. So right in my profile, you can go to YouTube, and that will be the last live stream. And so please check that out. But it is never too late to work on loving yourself. And then as I love myself, sometimes the love I want is different, but sometimes it's not. Like sometimes my partner is encouraging me to be more confident. My partner is supporting me. My partner wants for me to grow in that area, which is amazing. But if I am in a bit of a toxic situation, and if I start to do better, because then they might get scared that I won't need them, and that can sometimes cause problems. So I like to warn people, especially in individual therapy. It's like, hey, as we work on things, let me know if it starts to impact your relationship outside of here, because sometimes it can do that. um,
And the thing I would add is that when we go on the journey, or we continue our journey, because it's
mhm,
a continuous journey, right, of self-love, we need to communicate. Communication is critical in those areas, because if I came in and I said to Patrice, look, this is what I'm going to start doing now. So I'm giving her a forewarning that this is what I'm working on, or this is what I'm doing. And then the other thing is, sometimes you just oops, surprise. Because you know that you need to do this for yourself. So don't be limited by somebody else's situation in that. Make sure that you're healthy. And like Patrice mentioned earlier, sometimes when you tap into self-love or you go in that process, you find out that you need help.
Yeah.
You need help to walk that out. Don't be afraid to get additional help as you need to walk it out, because you only get one life to live.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us. We are wrapping up our love series. Next week, we are going to, we'll figure out exactly
Surprise.
what we're gonna, but we are, this whole month, we are talking about love and finding the love that we deserve. But it starts with being able to give it to myself, because often I expect the love I need from somebody else. And if I'm not giving that to myself, ooh, like that's really hard. Because when I'm confident with me, I can then be safe to ask them for what I need, because people don't just know. And so maybe we'll talk about communication next
Oh, I
week.
think that's a good one.
So
Communication and love.
we're gonna talk about communication
Because
and
not
love next
everybody,
week.
yeah, we don't need to start having conversation now because y'all won't get it next week. That's how we do it. Like, we can't talk about it until next week. Okay.
We gotta wait.
Okay. Next week, communication and love.
Thank you again. We hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Bye.